With all the stories polluting the web about using hypnotic seduction to date somebody, it is sometimes difficult to differentiate what is real from what is made up. In this video, I will reveal one experience in which I have used a pattern known as the shadow and the rising sun and tell you the harsh truth about what happened that night with the girl without any added fluff. So in the beginning, I was invited to hang out with some of my friends into a local bar. We were going there, I guess, every week or every 2 weeks, and that is the first thing I would encourage you to develop in your life, having the kind of social gathering where you go back every day, or not every day, but like every week or regularly. Because once in a while you bump into the same people again and you're no longer a stranger. You are somebody they have already met before. And that is exactly what happened that night. I stumbled upon a girl that I knew from a mutual acquaintance, but we had basically never really exchanged that much so far. We had seen each other, we had briefly exchanged, but nothing really serious. And during that first conversation, what I heard was, "Oh, I have a boyfriend." And she did not say that in a confrontational way to push me away. She just mentioned, "Yeah, the other day with my boyfriend, we went there and this and that and blah blah blah." So I kept in my mind, "Oh, okay, she has a boyfriend. Well, I guess I just cannot hope anything to happen tonight because she has a boyfriend anyway. What can I do? Maybe they have been together for like years, so I should maybe just forget about her." But therefore I just dropped all expectations. I just stopped putting pressure on myself because I was like, well, I am not getting laid tonight anyway, so why should I have any kind of pressure to perform anything? And that's how I had the reflex or the idea to at least test one of the patterns of the hypnotic seduction patterns I had read on the internet and practiced a little bit in my delivery, in my style of speaking, and in the ideas I was incorporating into that pattern. I had developed a few ideas around this and I decided to just give it a try, because after all, I am not getting laid tonight, therefore what harm can happen? I am just testing to see what comes out. And the pattern I decided to use therefore was called the shadow and the rising sun, that you may have heard about or read about in the past. It is the idea of telling her that, according to Carl Jung or other psychologists, we all have a shadow inside us. And this shadow is growing every time we repress negative emotions. But if the shadow becomes too big, then we just start doing things we don't want to do, or things that deep down we need to do, but we haven't allowed ourselves to do. It is kind of the reservoir of the dark desires contained within us. And this was a whole pattern I had extensively worked on because I was legitimately studying psychology, so it made sense to me to talk about this. It was not something I just memorized to try to get a girl in my bed, not at all. It was something I was actually really interested in learning more about. So when I talked about this, it was entertaining for her because I had many examples and many other books I had read on the topic, so I developed that into a whole conversation. It was not just a memorized script I tried to stick in her mind, it was a conversation I had with her. And when I got to the conclusion of that theme of conversation, explaining that if we don't want the dark desires to cause damage in our lives, we have to sometimes, at least on a small scale, sometimes allow ourselves to act upon some of the dark unfulfilled desires we hide within us, because if we never let them come out, then they might take control of us. And you can bet that whenever I was talking about let that come out, let the desire come out and all of those things, they were embedded commands that I was playing hypnotically with my voice whenever I was saying that. And I could say that it had some effect. I could measure some reaction coming from her, because at least when I mentioned this, that, you know, those dark desires have to come out, she went into a kind of deep trance, or I could see her face getting like staring like this, almost paralyzed, and she said, "Oh no, I should never do that." So at least I had connected something I had connected the dots within her mind based on my commands. I couldn't know what specifically she thought about, but at least I could notice from her reaction, Yeah, something made her think deeply about what I said. And what's crazy, therefore, is that after this local bar, we went into the apartment nearby of one of the girls in my group of friends. She invited us because she was living nearby. And once in that apartment, at some point, that girl I had used the shadow and the rising sun with, who had a boyfriend, so she should not cheat on anybody, she kept sometimes staring at me from the other side of the room like this. And whenever I was getting closer, she was getting closer to me too physically, sometimes without even looking at me. So I took that as a kind of unconscious signal. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right, if you know the rest of the story. At least I could notice some proximity happening. And the next thing I did was a bold move. Also, I had some signals by that point, but it was a kind of a bold move. I just saw her going to the bathroom, and in a kind of bold way, I joined her in the bathroom. And I had no guarantee anything would happen. It was just intuitively I thought, what if I try? What if I just go in there, see what happens? And worst case scenario, I just say, oh, sorry, I didn't see you were there, so I'm just getting out. I'm not losing anything anyway, I'm not wasting anything anyway, so why not try? I get in the bathroom, and there she sees me, she looks at me, she gets close to me, and then I was like against the door, and she got super close, and she said, you know, if I didn't have a boyfriend, I think what I would do would be, and whatever she said, but she started physically unzipping my zipper at the time she was saying that, you know, if I didn't have a boyfriend. And I was like, what the hell? And let me tell you, I was starting to have a pretty huge boner at that point, because all the playful looking at each other, you know, glancing at each other nonstop and like testing each other, I would say, during the night, that was something that really pumped me up. So when she just unzipped, I was like, oh, this is happening. But at this exact point, just get that image away from your mind, because at that point we were into another girl's apartment, and that girl opened the door and said, what are you doing here? And we were like, no, nothing. And I just hid my stuff out, and we went out of the bathroom. But then something else happened the same night. We were all kind of kicked out, I guess because that girl didn't like that two of her friends make out in the bathroom. So we were just kicked out, unfortunately, but therefore we were invited by another of the people from the group of the girl I was in interaction with, and she invited all of us, all the people still remaining in the party, to her place like 20 minutes away. And in that other place, by this point it was like I think 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning, we went into the other place, and in that other apartment we just lay on the bed. I think 4 of us lay on the bed, 2 other people lay on the ground, and we just had a conversation, and then slowly we just switched off all the lights, because, you know, it was getting late, people getting tired, all the alcohol doing his stuff for the ones who had drunk too much. On my end, I was not drinking that much because I still wanted to be conscious of what was happening with the person I had an interaction with. And ultimately, we were, both of us, laying on the bed in the dark, unfortunately with 2 other people, another girl and another guy on the same bed, so it was not completely comfortable to act upon other desires, other dark desires, but still we, as much as we could, started making out in the bed basically. I'm not gonna graphically detail everything, but basically we had some making out moment, let's put it that way, without making too much noise, because we were like literally this close to 2 other people on the side of the bed. And at some point I even told her to go to some bathroom again, both of us, and she said, no, my friends are gonna judge if I do this. Well, she whispered in my ear, my friends are gonna judge, so we didn't go there, but it was still pretty entertaining to say the least, and pretty interesting, because up to that point I thought, well, when a girl says she has a boyfriend, it is a done deal anyway. It's just a waste of time because she won't respond anyway. But also that drop of pressure is what made me more effective in my communication at that point. And the curious thing that happened is that the next day, the next morning, all of us went out by noon, I think. All of us went out of the house to go to some place, whatever. And once we got out, she told me, almost silently, whispering to not get her friends to listen. She told me, this thing just stays within us, right? Like she didn't want me to talk about it or to exchange about it. And I said, yeah, of course, whatever's your life, whatever. I'm not judging anything. So if you don't want me to tell anything about it, of course I won't say anything. But you want to know what happened? In the end, she told it to some mutual friend we had, her and I, complaining about me, saying to the friend, oh yeah, he tried to make me cheat on my boyfriend. And that mutual friend was almost pissed at me. So then I told him my version of the story, everything that happened, because obviously she only told the very end of the story, not the full story. And when he heard my version, he thought she was full of shit, or at least she was not completely honest with what happened. And after all, I think 2 or 3 months later, she actually dumped her boyfriend. She broke up with her boyfriend. So maybe I was the trigger she needed. I don't know. Maybe she would have broke up anyway, even without me. That is definitely possible. But in any case, that was an interesting experience for me, because before that point, I didn't even know that it was possible to just activate somebody's sensual thoughts or dark desires through the way you speak. I didn't know that could happen. And if you want to figure out a complete step-by-step process for how to get the same kind of results adapted to you, obviously your morality is what it is, so you just have to adapt it to what is comfortable for you to use. You also have down below a complete method, step-by-step, to figure out where to start when you want to develop those skills. Avoid trying to use a pattern word for word right away from the get-go. There are some intermediate steps to figure out and to complete before getting there. Some steps I haven't revealed during this video. Some things that are like micro skills you have to conceptualize and automate in your language and your abilities and your communication before getting to the kind of results I described in this video. There are some micro skills to chunk down one step at a time, and you have all of them in the clear sequence to learn them down below in the method called Covert Seduction Blueprint. This is in the description if you want to figure out how that works, how to develop those capacities, and how to make that fluent into the way you naturally communicate. You can just follow the process and it will guide you to some of your wildest dreams, at least I hope so. With that in mind, thank you very much for watching. I hope it was entertaining for you, and see you soon in the next video.